Green fingers. I wish I had them. It's been a battle in the vicarage garden this year, waging war against the weeds and the thorns, and trying to nurture lovely but struggling plants. Jesus' well-known parable of the sower spoke about such a battle. Jesus' parable was addressed not to the crowds, but specifically to the disciples. And it wasn't a story with a moral, but a prophetic word to believers, to us. Of course, it should really be called the parable of the soils. In the parable, the seed which the sower sows is a metaphor for God's word sown in human hearts. For some Christians, God's word falls like seed on a path which the devil snatches away, just like hungry birds. For others, God's word falls like seed on stony ground, which fails to take root. These are the fair weather Christians, for when the cost of discipleship begins to bite, they jump ship. Still others receive the seed of God's word, but their lives are full of thorns, worldly concerns and desire for wealth, which choke any growth. However, some Christians are like the good soil, which receives the seed of God's word and brings forth an abundant harvest. Let's be honest with ourselves. Out of the four soils, which are we? The parable was addressed to believers and demands from us each, as an individual, a personal response. But we might well extend it to the body of believers, the church, both nationally and locally. So let's ask ourselves, as a church, what kind of soil are we? Do we as a church hear and protect God's word by obeying it, immediately putting it into practice? Or do we allow it to be snatched away from us? Again, Jesus' gospel of God's amazing love and grace is a gospel of comfort and joy. But it also calls us to discipleship by establishing his kingdom of love and justice. Do we do this, or are we as a church content simply to be fair weather Christians, expecting God simply to solve our problems, endorse our own agendas and make us comfortable? Again, are we growing in the life of God, or are we allowing the thorns of pride, status and position to choke that life? Or maybe, finally, are we like the good soil, receiving the good news of God's love with joy, putting it into practice, obeying Jesus, doing what God and Jesus tell us, and so bring forth the fruit of changed lives and changed communities? As we prepare to gather together at last over the next few weeks, might we resolve together to be both individual people and a church which is growing under the care of God's green fingers and flourishing in the abundant life which Jesus gives.